This next gentleman needs no introduction, but last year he got no introduction, so I'd really like to let you appreciate the fine words of Mr. Brett Bernat.
Oh. Well, that's nice. Thank you. You know, I was against the idea, this was run by me, of the Christopher Walken impersonator introduces Brett and then Brett introduces Rich, but it just happened. So, and it was Rich's idea, and I think it kind of speaks to his attention and his consideration. The last time I was on this stage a couple of years ago, Rich definitely noticed that there was no one here to introduce me when I spoke, so I just walked up on the stage very awkwardly and had to suddenly command everyone's attention. So Rich made that right, and I appreciate it. So thank you for the introduction, guys.
It's not over.
My name is Brett Bernat, and I'm the creator of the School Sucks Project, and I've been a member of the Free State community for a number of years. I used to work with Free State families doing tutoring and consulting for their unschooled students, and I've been the host of, or co-host of Complete Liberty Podcast, the Freedom Fiends, and a banished show that I will only mention very quickly and discreetly by its initials, FTL. So that's my relationship to the FSP. This is my 8th consecutive Porcfest. Woo! Yeah, let's do a gratuitous applause break for me. Perfect. Thank you. And I bring that up because I've been involved in this community in a number of different ways for a long time, and I'm very honored and excited to be able to introduce somebody for the first time coming up on this stage, Richard Grove, who has been a really positive influence in my life in a number of ways for like a decade, working outside of the Free State Project community almost entirely. So just real quick, I first encountered Rich about 10 years ago. He had a podcast called 9/11 Synchronicity. It was the first podcast that I ever listened to regularly, and I was just so impressed not only by Rich's personal story, but also his care and his attention to detail in this production that he was able to create, mixing music with film clips and news footage and monologues, and even hired voice actors. And it was just this amazing presentation that was actually really inspirational for me to start my own show a couple years later. So within a couple years, like 2007, 2008, I was pretty 9/11'd out, and that was the subject of the podcast. So I moved on to other things, but fortunately for me and for many other people, including all of you, so did Rich. He went on to found the Peace Revolution podcast, tragedyandhope.com. He continued to perfect his craft as a documentary filmmaker. He's done some absolutely amazing work, including the Future of Freedom series, which you can watch a good chunk of on his YouTube channel, Tragedy and Hope, for free. And one of the most important pieces of filmmaking that I ever had the pleasure of seeing was something called The Ultimate History Lesson, a weekend with John Taylor Gatto, where John Taylor Gatto is kind of, if you don't know, he's sort of the Rosetta Stone of the history, the dark history of public schooling in the United States. So almost impossible to get in touch with. Rich finds him and all of his decades of research, brings him to Connecticut, puts him up for the weekend, interviews him, and turns it into this 5-hour documentary film that captures a lifetime of this man's research. And I think that project actually speaks to Rich's gift. He's very good at going out and finding the esoteric or the abstruse and condensing it, finding the value in it, and then, as he would say, put handles on it and transfer it to the people who follow him, the people in his audience, and really make it useful to all of them. So he's done that with The Ultimate History Lesson. He does that with his Peace Revolution podcast, and he does that with numerous other methodologies that he has shared with his community, including the Trivium, the Getting Things Done method of productivity. Really, really life-changing stuff for me. So I'm very honored to be able to welcome to this stage for the first time my friend and a mentor of mine, Richard Grove.
Good job, dude. All right, don't get too excited. That was probably the best you're going to see for today. The rest will be instructional. All right, so did anyone click the link yet? Paul made this great page. What's up, Porcfest? Thank you kindly. So I wanted to say thanks to Brett. And it was Brett who taught me a couple years ago how to make my first meme. And for those of you sitting in the back, it says, I'm not saying the world is run by people outside this country. I'm saying they're aliens. And if you don't know why that's funny, you got to go to the History Channel plus Aliens meme set, and you can see people going like this and making memes. And that's what I caught Brett doing. He was giving a talk. Let me go back to it for a second. And I said, I could put an alien head right there. It'll fit. That's your proper introduction. Thank you. Today, I'm talking on the subject of the economics of self-reliance, and it's something I've learned slowly for myself over the past 10 years, and I have a more complicated title. It's all about creating digital assets, and I came up with this title before I looked at any of the sponsors for the festival. So I believe there's a sponsor that actually teaches people entrepreneurial skill sets called FEE, and it was totally coincidental. But I thought, then I'm hitting on the right spot for people to be interested. So who here uses the internet? All right, so that was just a test. Who here has the internet in their pocket? This year, thankfully, a lot of us do, right? So I'd like to talk to you about the internet as an asset, meaning it puts money into your pockets, because most of us use it as a liability, meaning it takes money out of your pocket. So with that in mind, the actual landing page that I've created for this looks like this. And the URL is tragedyandhope.com/Porcfest. It'll be up here at the top. So if you get bored and you're looking at your phone, I'm going to assume you're deriving all the resources out of this page. It's everything I talk about, plus 15 bonus resources. Bookmark it for future study, because there's a bunch of stuff there, and you're not going to see it until you leave here, probably. And it links to all the products and services that I use to implement the internet infrastructure that I'm going to talk about today. And if you scroll down on the page, this is the actual section where I'm going to be talking about this link, this link, this link, and then my entire YouTube playlist that I used to teach myself all these skills. So if you want to start from scratch and just say, what are all these parts of the infrastructure? And I'm going to lay it out in a metaphor so it'll be easier and a little bit less boring. But just so you know where to go when you're actually looking for the resources, that's the page. Beyond that, it's a longer page. So I gave you a bunch of other resources on there. And I promise if you take time to check them out, you'll find them valuable. So I want to ask this question to kind of frame out the outline and put everything else I'm talking about inside this. But what would life on your terms look like? I know a lot of people say, well, if I only had more money, or if we only had a bigger house, or if I only had a different car, a more reliable car. I know we're not the only ones who had car trouble this week. Had to call AAA. What would it look like? And I used to think it would look like a sandy beach with palm trees. And so just keep that in mind as we go through, because I think as you learn some of these different details, you're going to start to fill in what that looks like for you. And instead of having this ambiguous, generic version of a world on your terms, like I just showed you, the generic version, you'll have something much more specific. So the goals for my talk today is to give you knowledge of the tools and resources that are there. So I don't expect you to learn how to do all this stuff for my talk, but I want you to know where these resources are when you are interested in implementing some of the tools. I'm going to highlight a few strategies and tactics, but by no means is it exhaustive. It's a starting point, not an ending point. And I'd like to provide you with a working knowledge of the concept of digital assets. So most people think of assets as real estate, or you might think of your house as an asset. Digital assets are things that myself Brett Fanot, Luke Radowski, Ernie Hancock, all sorts of media and content creators are producing, but we're not really structuring it in such a way that we can make a healthy living off of it. You can make a living without doing much, but to make an actual healthy living that would compare to the benefits of the corporate world without all the restraints. Lastly, to provide you with a lens through which you can see and understand this, because I guarantee most of what I'll show you, you've seen before, but you didn't know the nomenclature of it, and so it kind of bounces off you. This is my 4th year at Porcfest. Thank you guys all for coming. I wanted to, after I've sat through all these presentations, I wanted to provide something of high value, so I tried to concentrate about 3 hours of learning into 45 minutes, and we'll see how that goes if you concentrate it. So if I get brief at some point, it means I have a time schedule and I'm speeding up. My road to entrepreneurism started as a line cook at a couple different restaurants, and as we all know, that's hard work, and it builds character, and most importantly, it makes you appreciate and pay attention to better opportunities as you're going through life. So for me, that led to becoming a franchise owner when I was still in college. So here I am trying to get a business degree. I actually ran a business, made substantial money during the summer, and then discovered how valueless this college education that I was paying for was. And I was going to do that for longer and run my own business. But my parents said, you need health care. You need a 401k. You need to play it safe. So I went to work in sales for a software company. So let me ask the question, what lesson in school, what subject in school, university, high school, whatever, taught you how to make money? So we all got the same curriculum, no teaching on, just basic entrepreneur skills. So having learned this in college, I found that in the workplace, there are these people called headhunters, and they come and find you and take you to all these job interviews. And that expensive piece of paper that I got for my college education, I never had to show. I never had to show proof that I went to college. So the diploma hangs lonely in a hallway. Never had to use it. But that's only because I had the opportunity. I responded to an ad in the paper. This company gave you all the skills that you needed. You go out and you earn money. And that was more valuable. Those couple summers were much more valuable than anything I had encountered at university. It taught me about goals. There was no high school course on goals or accountability or integrity, which means doing what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it. It taught me to systematize complex tasks. Again, an essential skill set of being an entrepreneur, but it's not given to us in school. And then you start to ask the question, why aren't we given these essential skills in school? Also taught me a little bit about copywriting and cold calling, which a lot of people have a problem with because you feel uncomfortable. And the way to be successful at any of these skills is to do it and collect your no's. If you're trying to go out and sell something, siding, go out and collect 10 no's, because you're going to find 2 people that say, yeah, we'd like to do that. So I also learned a little bit about employee management. When you employ exclusively college students during the summer, there are certain things that happen. They're not always prompt. They don't always call you if they're not going to show up. And most importantly, customer service. And again, these are all skill sets essential to being an entrepreneur that were not taught in school. So the road to entrepreneurism. Has anyone ever seen Glenn Ross? Okay. So you know this sales guy. When we think sales guy, we think this guy. He's a dick. Rule number 1, it's not always be closing. It's always be learning, because the proper way, that was the worst movie. It's a great movie to see sales in action, but it's the worst movie to say that's how to do it. Because if you're always asking questions, you're learning about your client, you're building relationship, and you're providing them with exactly what they need. So Baldwin's wrong, and to do that, to always be learning, you ask questions, you listen to the answers. That's important. Most people are always waiting to speak. And you think of solutions. So I became an entrepreneur somewhat, because salespeople are very entrepreneurial, but they still have a management structure that needs them. From 1997 to 2004, it's a very lucrative market. I was thinking about going into pharmaceutical sales, but then I was like, no, You could be selling a drug that kills people. I'll sell software. Nobody gets killed with software. My clients were Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and all the Wall Street banks. So what I learned is software is a digital asset, and it's subjectively priced. So if Lynn works for Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, and I know she has a $20 million budget, guess what? The software is $10 million in that case. That's not an example that I did, but this is how they do it. This is how Oracle and all these big companies work. It is subjectively priced, meaning they make it up. Therefore, it has very lucrative commissions, but it's also a magnet for corruption. This is where my life started to get a little more interesting because I was learning about the world in such a way that it wasn't taught to me in school. University did not prepare me for corporate corruption. In 2003, I became a federal whistleblower, which, we think we have whistleblower protections and there are laws to protect this. I learned the hard way that that's not true. It's an early warning system, and now understanding that, you can see why somebody like Snowden would go outside of what they call channels. So if you're going to blow the whistle, there's a specific way you're supposed to do it, and if you do it that way, it's unlikely to be successful. So my definition of entrepreneur, it's got 3 parts. One who undertakes an enterprise. This is from Oxford English Dictionary, by the way. One who owns and manages a business, or a person who takes the risk of profit or loss. Now that seems simple on the surface, and yet it's such an essential part of America's history, the innovation, the invention that made, if America was ever great at one point, it was when individuals had self-reliance skills. Their self-esteem and self-confidence came from those skills, not from buying things at a department store. So I think that entrepreneurism is a solution to what we're facing as far as globalism and the New World Order and all these other things that people talk about, because that's essentially a form of collectivism where you no longer have individual rights and local accountability. If they make accountability and say the United Nations controls America, well, then the people controlling your lives and making those rules are outside of that. Now, there are things like that we can't directly influence, but what can we do as individuals, in my estimation, is arm ourselves with all the resources and tools that we need to be self-reliant, to be critical thinking, to be individually thinking, because we're much harder to control when we're not being mass-controlled in groups by emotions. So this is a way to not only help solve the problems, to get self-reliance, it allows individuals to voluntarily interact with each other in a way that you don't really have. Sometimes with the corporate world, those interactions are forced and you don't have a whole lot of choice. And it shows that even communism can profit by selling ice cream at protests. Here's Antifa saying, I'm an entrepreneur. People need ice cream. I need Federal Reserve notes. And this is by one of my favorite meme artists, The Art of Not Being Governed. I don't know if you guys know his stylings, but it's irony. And it's Beverly Hills Antifa, which is a troll account. So it's a mix. You got to do a little research when you see these things. They're deep. So, definition of wealth. Because a lot of people want to be wealthy and they think that means you have to earn a lot of money and all these different concepts. And I used to think that life on my terms would look like this. But after actually implementing it, I know it looks like this. Or like that. Or like that. Shameless plug of vacation photos. So what I did was, Brett mentioned I did a podcast from 2006 to 2009 called 9/11 Synchronicity. And I wanted to do a new format. I had a new podcast called Peace Revolution that I wanted to launch. But we also wanted to launch an online magazine. So back before everyone had mobile phones that had internet, you would be at a screen in the computer. And this would look like a flip page magazine. So you could actually move the pages with your mouse. And it was interactive, so we could put audio, video, podcast, everything in there. And it was fantastic. And it took a lot of work. It took like 6 months to make the first issue. We released it, and the demand was greater than the supply, meaning people wanted more right away. And I was like, we just took us 6 months to do this, man. It's like, so what we did is we wanted to teach people about intellectual self-defense. This was an ad I wrote back in the day. So my magazine didn't have external ads or commercials, but we came up with this branding idea where if you're flipping through, You might want to sacrifice your fear, and what you lose, you lose your fear, and what you gain is all these other things: physical, intellectual self-defense, social capital. In other words, sacrifice your fear, gain your confidence. So it's a catchy idea because we live in a world where people are controlled by fear all the time. They use the emotion of fear to control us all the time. So I thought, what better way than to offer a resource to let people liberate themselves from fear, like one page at a time? And because it took too long, what we did is I created an online community, and in the heart of the community right here is a chat box. So when you drop in every day, you see people posting cool links and news stories and other things. So unlike a lot of other communities that I had checked out in the past, I thought the chat feature, and it stayed the same for the past 8 years. So it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. People appreciate it. People use it as a resource. And then I launched the podcast. There's actually 2 different streams on iTunes for my podcast. This one goes from 2009 to present, only has Peace Revolution episodes, 22 5-star ratings. And then the other one goes from 2006 to present, so it has all my podcasts, and there's 61 5-star ratings there. So if you have iTunes, if you listen to podcasts, I highly recommend the Peace Revolution. Not because of what I say in it. It's a reflection of the research that I do, and then I condense it in the beginning. I give you a monologue to explain it, and then I give you all the source material on what the given topic of an episode is. If you think a 20-hour episode is too long, anyone? It's not. It's really not. You don't have to play the whole thing. There's no obligation, but I know a lot of people who do. I know people that drive 40 hours a week, and they just gobble it up. So that's what I've been working on for the past 8 years. And as an entrepreneur, running my own small business, and I call it a business very loosely because we've never done any marketing, so everything was kind of like organic. And I didn't do Google ads or Facebook, or I don't have a Facebook page. I didn't do Facebook ads because I wanted it to be grassroots. Yeah, thanks, Ernie. I just wanted to see what the interest was from people without trying to push it at them, right? So it's been a very non-confrontational process. I publish the work, it's out there, people find it, they tell their friends, and that was good for the past 8 years until you have a baby, and then you start thinking about, what are the other ways that I can kindly monetize some of this stuff? So, in my job, I'm a forensic historian first, which means I collect very rare history books on American and global history, like history of Western culture. And I'm researching all these different crimes to see what evidence has kind of been left out of the public conversation. Then I take that. So before I move forward, a lot of people ask why the company is called Tragedy and Hope, and it's because there's a history book written in 1966 by Professor Carroll Quigley, who taught. He was educated at Harvard and Princeton, and then he was teaching at Georgetown when he wrote this particular book. It's 1,300 pages. I don't recommend it, reading it as a first read. There's a very good book called Tragedy and Hope 101 that's like a Cliff Notes version. So start with the Cliff Notes and then decide if you want to read the bigger book. But the plates to print the book were destroyed. And this is what I found fascinating, that for 40 years, this book was almost impossible to get, and when you did get it, you'd have to pay several $100s for it. It's now back in publication, and so that was the idea of Tragedy and Hope. I thought it had more than one meaning. It's not just a history book. It's the story of America in the post-industrial age as we try to equip ourselves with useful skills in the face of an education and media system that profits from us being dumb. The next part is I take all the things I learn and I put them into media. One of the pieces of media is called the History Blueprint, and I really should have put a screenshot in here for that, huh? It's an organic model that has 10,000 thoughts and 50,000 links. So as I go through and learned any of these different parts of history in the past 15 years, I would enter it into this blueprint that has all the connections of let's say President Eisenhower. Above him in the model would be where he went to school, what he did for the military, and then underneath it would be people whom he mentored. And by learning in this way, you're not just learning about one person in history, you're learning about where they came from, who they influenced, and how it all fits together. And the benefit of the History Blueprint for my audience is that the things that I've learned, I can share with them on an internet link where they can click through, they can buy the model, they can click into it and change it. And I use it in all of my productions because if you're watching one of my videos and you see me go to the history blueprint, I know you can click the link in the video description. You can go to that page and start learning. Instead of it being passive, it becomes more active and participatory. The other thing you have to do is maintain infrastructure. And in my production of interviews, there's a whole lot of stuff that you had to learn. And again, college or high school never prepared me to have to learn all these individual things and become a semi-expert just in order to film an interview with someone like Bill Binney. So there's a lot that I have to do as I go through the day, producing podcasts, producing videos. And that business model was okay from 2006 until probably 18 months ago. I was satisfied. I was like, this is good. We can keep the lights on, and nobody's telling us what to do. I was also giving it away for free, so it's an anti-business model. Right? If you give your product away for free and you depend on people to give you a donation afterwards or subscribe, I would say that shows I had a high degree of faith in voluntarism, because I didn't want to say pay for something before you check it out. I don't like that. So the idea was to let the audience decide on their own when to support, how much to support, and really just see what the market would bear. And it was my experiment in voluntarism in action. So I have an audience. This map, I was hoping for a bigger screen, so I'll read it. There's people that tuned in from 186 countries last year to our productions, and that's without any marketing. So to get people from all these different countries to find some content that I think is applicable to people in America, definitely people in Canada, a lot of people in Europe, but to see people in countries where I have to look it up on the map sometimes is very impressive of what the internet avails people to do. The links don't have borders, that the links travel around the world through Facebook and social media and email and people sending them on their phones as text. So I've been doing it the wrong way for 11 years. So the pros of voluntarism in my business model and not doing any marketing is that millions of people have seen my videos and my podcasts, and it's a diverse audience of conscious people from around the world. So now I know it's not just us here in the East Coast or us here in America or us here in North America. Freedom is applicable to people all around the world, and there's a lot of people hungry for it that have never set foot in America. The cons, without doing any type of marketing, about 1% of a podcast audience, in my case, subscribes. And so I could say I could work on getting more percentage, like a higher percentage to subscribe, or I could say I need to make my podcast more applicable to more people. So I was faced with a question a couple months ago. How could I increase revenue without putting ads on my site, without putting commercials in my content, because these are things that I don't really like to do and I haven't had to do in the past. So you have to have a good reason if you want to change, and I only needed one. And so what I want to say from a learning perspective is it's rarely as hard as you think it is. It's not always going to be as scary or as fearful as you think it might be, but it's always going to be harder than you thought it was. And I find that all the time when I'm trying to estimate a schedule of production, how long it's going to take me to get from A to B. And back in last October, I had a subscriber who subscribed to me for like 10 years. He does very well. He works at a hedge fund brokerage type place. And he came over and he was going to sell me his product. I don't know if it was life insurance or some investment. And I kept waiting for him to pitch me. And he called me afterwards and he said, to be honest, I came there to pitch you, but then I realized you don't make enough money to buy what I'm selling. And, usually that's not the call you want to hear. But he said, but I think I have a solution for you. He's like, I'm just going to tell you how I think you could make more money without changing basically anything that you do, without ads, without commercials. I said, tell me more. I'm a little interested in that. So his suggestion was that I listen to Tom Woods. Anyone here know Tom Woods? It's more people than use the internet. Look at that, Tom. My buddy gave me a spark of inspiration. I already knew who Tom Woods was. I was like, I know Tom Woods. What are you trying to tell me? What am I missing? Go to his website and look. Start to study what he's got going on. Join his mailing list. So I did. So I joined his mailing list. He offered his free book. Anyone have this book? 5 Paths to Online Income? I said, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And as soon as I got that book, he gave me a one-time offer. Might say it was an offer I couldn't refuse. He said, for $27, I have this video series, and I'll teach you all about this stuff. I said, that's fantastic, because it has to be worth saving me $27 in time, because I'm going to wander aimlessly around this topic. So I watched the videos. So first rule, don't buy something you're not going to consume. So I bought it. I watched it right away. I studied it. I read his book. And then I wanted to know more. I was like, oh, I reached the limitations of first level Tom Woods. What else can I do to learn? So I cast a wider net, going to YouTube and typing in internet marketing, lead magnet, opt-in. I started to find out and discover the names for these things because what I was learning was more explicit and Tom was more of an overview, but it got me started. And the importance of that is you start to gain momentum. So you don't have to find that reason to keep learning because now you're in a learning process. So we had the Adpocalypse of 2016, 2017. Anyone know about this? Anyone adversely affected by this besides Luke Rudowski? Dan Dix, Paul Joseph Watson. There's a bunch of people that have lost a significant amount of their online income because of the Adpocalypse. And what that is, for those of you playing at home, is Facebook, YouTube, these establishment social media networks were paying people to put ads on content. Well, some people were bringing in several $1,000s a month. So it's not a lot, but to them, it's almost everything. And they're losing their ability to produce content and to actually get their projects done. And this was happening concurrent to me learning about this. And so I see liberty-minded media being demonetized in a state, like in a country where we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to have freedom of speech, right? But freedom of speech online only, there are limitations within the corporate sphere where they say that you don't have that. They have the right to censor you, to ban you. And they don't even have to provide you with a reason. And I think in the case where they're taking away people's income like that, like the offering it and taking it away without a reason, is cruel and unusual. It's not necessary. And it's just going to create a backlash, which is what I'm here to talk about. This loss of project funding is actually the invitation to be more self-reliant. Because if you're bringing in an extra $1,000 a month from YouTube ads, what else could you do and how long would it take it to give you that $1,000 a month outside of having YouTube ads? You might create a digital course. You might write an ebook. You might do an audio lecture. You might have stuff already that you can make into the components that I'm about to show you, because when I learned them, I said, whoa, what do I have that I could repurpose and create this and get it going? And then you can improve it later. But as an entrepreneur, I know the value of never wait till it's perfect to release it. Microsoft taught us that. Look at us today, right? So my advice would be you make your sales sheet, your copywriting, however you're going to present your product. Here's the feature benefits. And then you design your product to meet those specs. And once it meets those specs, even if it's not perfect, you're going to have happy customers because they're getting what they think they will, what they wanted to pay for. So these people want to take your power. They want to demonetize you because they want control. And they're doing it because they know their control and their power over you is fragile. And they have just made a cataclysmic mistake by letting go of Luke Rudowski, saying, hey, we're not doing business anymore. That gives him freedom, but that freedom is unexpected responsibility sometimes for people because there was no chance to get prepared. So demonetizing actually starts to solve our problems if we put in a little bit of work. And they just lost control of everyone they demonetized. So congratulations. Those people are now free to do what they want. And just with the knowledge that freedom comes with a little bit of responsibility, it's going to take a little legwork to get caught up. But it's going to be an entirely better structure for everybody who is an entrepreneur who wants to do some sort of independent production of liberty-minded media. I'm going to click through a couple of these because I want to get to the meaty stuff. Okay, we can go here. So this whole problem of demonetization juxtaposed to my learning about this internet infrastructure, which should be well known because we all use the internet. We encounter these things every day, but no one's taught it to us, started to give me an idea. So I created an entire course teaching step by step because I want to grow entrepreneurs in my community. I want to provide them with tools so that they can be successful at whatever level. But I'm guessing there's nobody here who's so rich that they couldn't use a couple extra $100 a month in any way of your choosing because it's a wide open market with a ton of different opportunities. It's not anything that they're going to tell you about on TV, but you're going to encounter this stuff every day. So I thought we should know the names, and that'll help us get to the point where we start to understand and we can practically apply what we're learning. So, definition of a digital asset. It's a digital audio or video file or an electronic document, a course or tutorial. We've all done, has anyone here paid for knowledge? You've paid for a tutorial, learned something at some point, right? How'd it work out? Work out pretty good? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Be discerning. And so these can structure a digital asset. If you put it online, you make it for sale, you do some marketing, and it's out there and it's available. So it's different than an inventory item that you might have to have on Amazon and keep refilling the inventory. A digital asset, you make it once, it's there, it can service 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people, nothing changes. So there's total opportunity. So if I invested $250 into an info product, I did it because it saves me time either in doing it or keeps me from wandering around in that whole learning curve. I do it because I know that investing in myself is how I make my skills better as an entrepreneur, and they don't just sharpen themselves, and knowledge just doesn't come feed itself to you. So I've made it a practice, because I'm an entrepreneur, to learn on a constant basis because there's always some aspect of my business that I have to tend to, and the reason I have to tend to it is because I didn't know enough about that. And then you go and take some time and learn about it, and then you get back to your business. I think this is common for most small business owners in general. And what we're really seeking out of all this is autonomy. That's what we want. We want to do what we want to do and not have to do the things that we don't want to do, and that's a form of wealth. So the blueprint metaphor that I've come up with for the presentation is an automobile, because everyone here is familiar with an automobile. And I'm going to go through and compare parts to the digital infrastructure of online marketing. And if you don't know about automobiles, this will also be interesting for you. You might learn about a system that you have and been using in your car, and you didn't even know about it. That was my idea of using a car. And I said, that looks a little too complex. So let's break it down. Because I found sometimes in life, you just need a better co-pilot, you know? This co-pilot's like mainstream media, public education, and you don't want that for your co-pilot. So I'd rather learn to read the map myself, figure out how to get from A to B. These are just a few of the methods and strategies and tactics. It's not limiting. It's supposed to be a starting point and unlimiting. I'm going to show you the common architecture. First, you're going to have a product or service. And if you don't have a product or service, don't worry. We'll talk about that later. Nobody wants a product or service. What they want are the results. That's what every time we buy something, we don't want the product or service. We want the results. I don't want the product or service of replacing my water pump. I want the water pump in my car to work. As a buyer, you want value and results. And as an entrepreneur, if you learn to develop value and deliver results consistently, you got a good business. You got a growing business. You're able to formulate your own business. And you do that by asking the questions, what do people spend money on? They spend money on entertainment. They spend money on service. You spend money on products. I spend money on products. We spend money on education sometimes and experiences. You could take somebody ziplining or hiking or parachuting with your expertise if that's something you're qualified for. So this is the realm of entrepreneurial endeavors. We see a problem. We don't see it as a problem. We say we can make a solution, and that can be a business. And I think that's what made America so much different than Europe, especially in the 1800s, coming through into the 1900s before they got a lid on us, was the focus on making other people's lives better and having it be a fair exchange of value for the time and experience. So, entrepreneur essentials. You're going to have a product. I would advise you have more than one product. And they call that a product mix. And the product mix is your range of products from free to very high ticket items or consulting, however you would like to do it. None of this is mandatory, but it gives you a spectrum to service people at different levels of needs. So a lot of people come to my site, they just want the free stuff. Podcasts, tutorials, or vlogs. That's fine. Some people want the courses. You take a modular course, you learn each section at a time, not too overwhelming. Some people like to have the subscription model because they like the idea of having a community of people where they can talk and interact, because we live in a world where 9 out of 10 people we encounter outside of Porcfest don't have any clue about the things that are really important to us in our life, because freedom and liberty and individual justice is a concept that is lost in our greater society, which is why I think we come to Porcfest in the first place. You could also have coaching or consulting. These would be your higher ticket items. Instead of showing people how to do it, they might pay you to do it, or you outsource that to get that done for them and manage it. So this is a graphic I found. This is that guy Tony Robbins. Anyone heard it? Yeah. I don't own any of these products, but I thought it was interesting how they listed all the free things he does. Then this is his low ticket item called a tripwire. It's like $15 to $300. And then it goes to the core product, which is $1,000 to $22,000. And then his coaching. So if you want Tony Robbins to coach you, it costs like $66,000 to $87,000. I'm guessing that's year and not by the second. But that gives you an idea of what a product mix would look like. The other essential, why I mentioned that you don't need to have a product or service, is because of this little area right here that very few people know about. And even just talking at Porcfest, I was very surprised how many other entrepreneurs weren't aware of affiliates and joint ventures. So this is where somebody, let's say I develop a product. I have a course on critical thinking and creative problem solving. And I pay 50% commission to people who have Facebook pages, or people like Brett. I say, Brett, does your audience want my course? I'll pay you 50% commission. It's good for your business, good for my business, good for your audience. What do you think? Right? So that's the general concept behind a joint venture. It's a way for sellers to hook up with good products, and it's a way for people who have products to be able to go through and make it connection with the market. So Tom Woods recently made $17,000 in 6 weeks with one affiliate product. He's not at the place yet where he's creating his own products, but I saw this go through in an email exchange that was public, so I felt free to mention it, because I think it's a real example of success. Tom's a smart guy. He went to Ivy League schools. He's a best-selling author. He's very successful in giving people opportunities to learn about liberty on a regular basis. And so I'm not saying my goal is to make that in 6 weeks. If I made that in a year, that would be great. I mean, it's every dollar that you're bringing in is something you don't have. So I'll just cover this very quickly, because how many minutes do I have left? All right. How do you get from A to B? A being a newbie with a newbie understanding of internet marketing, and B being somebody who is at least competent to perform a practical application and bring in a little bit of extra income. So we're using a car. Every engine needs an air intake. So the air intake is your traffic. I would call it organic traffic. This is traffic if you have a WordPress site or a Facebook page. This is what comes there without doing anything, without doing any marketing, without buying any ads. The engine would be an opt-in form. You ever see those boxes on websites where they say, join our mail list? Right? They're everywhere. Those are called opt-ins, and what they need is a lead magnet, like Tom Woods offers his free book. Sign up, get my free book, now you're on the list. This is an example. This is G. Edward Griffin's opt-in. So when you see this, that's called an opt-in. And when you see it with, oh, we're giving you some free books, here's some value, that's an opt-in with a lead magnet. So that's your engine. Opt-ins are voluntary. So if you don't sign up for my list, you don't see anything that I'm doing, and it's totally not in your face, not clogging up the site with commercials or advertisements. So lead magnets offer value. It's a fair quid pro quo. The next is, so people sign up, then you take them to your landing page. The landing page is where you're offering a single point of focus to introduce them to a concept, to get them to sign up for your list or your course or what have you. So really, it's a sales page, and it can be a sales page that has deliverables. If they've already signed up, this is where you can deliver your digital asset, or it can be used to enlist them. In my case, I use the landing page that I created for this as my example. So it's a single point of focus. And the tool set that I use to build all this stuff, I have linked in the landing page, so I'm not going to cover that. Another example of a landing page was NBC used one this past week. I was like, oh, it's a landing page, because now that you know what it is, you start to see it everywhere. But it's a single point of focus, and there's nothing else distracting on the page. They want you to watch this interview. That's the purpose of a landing page. Your pistons are your willpower. Now, if anyone's in here is an engine mechanic, you might tell me that's not correct. You might say it's the spark or something like that. But the idea is that you have a potential. That's where you get your horsepower from grinding your pistons and moving forward despite the load, persistence despite resistance. And so that's the critical aspect that you bring to the table in addition to these other tool sets is your willpower. Your fuel would be your inspiration. You want to channel your interest in activism into creating a digital product because it's going to continue to give you more mileage down the road. You're creating something that's going to be a recurring form of revenue that ensures that you have a passive form of income, and it doesn't have to be a lot. Some of the products I've made, I make $50 a month on selling on Amazon, but it's an extra $50, and once you add up different digital assets, it adds up over the month. Your transmission will be your product mix. Now, we talked about the different products in the mix. Essentially, first gear is free. Second gear is your low price. Third gear is your mid price. Fourth gear would be your high price. And overdrive would be consulting or coaching. Those would be your high ticket products. Your drive shaft is your email autoresponder. So this is actually how you translate the energy you're gathering with the engine, with the opt-in, and to get forward motion out of it, you need to build a relationship with your clients. And you do that by providing them with value. A lot of people think it's all about just asking for money all the time, saying buy this affiliate product. But I really think the lists that I've studied, that I've remained on, consistently give me value on that topic. And every now and then they say, here's a useful tool that you can take or leave. But the reason I'm on those lists is to get knowledge and be able to get experience. Your tires, copywriting. This is the type of print that you would use on a sales page. And copywriting, I gave it tires because it's where rubber meets the road. If you're not selling something, it's because you're not actually using the words that help people see that you're meeting their needs and it would be a viable solution. Steering wheel is your critical thinking. That's your intellectual self-defense and the capacity to evaluate various deals and offers. And your car frame in your body would be your business. Now, it might be a side hustle. It might be something you do in addition to another job, or it might be your full-time job where you'd have an LLC or a corporation. The windshield is your business plan. It lets you see down the road. As you implement this, are you actually getting to the place where you want to be? Because where you want to be is life on your terms, where you don't have to ring the alarm clock every morning and go check into a cubicle. The cooling system. Most people don't think about this, but this is your customer support. And it keeps customers from getting overheated and blowing their gaskets. It's very important. And you can tell when they're getting agitated because that's your thermostat. It tells you when they're boiling over. Brakes, very important. Anyone here drive cars without brakes? All right. Brakes is your integrity. This lets you know I don't need to go any further. I'm delivering on what I need to do. Helps you avoid obstacles in your path. And last but not least, I think this is the last one, the accelerator. Once you get everything working, this will be your ads. Once you add a little ad juice on Facebook, I avoid boost post and avoid promote page. And Facebook actually has a secret workshop type of dashboard that's called Power Editor. Anyone know about Power Editor? Because if you do, I want to talk to you about it afterwards. That's where you get the most, because you could say, if I'm selling a John Taylor Gatto DVD, I could find all the homeschoolers in this area, and that's how you would attract them to that ad. So the summary, you can get from A to B in style because you're going to build your own car, which is a business, and you're going to refine that by designing your products and services to deliver value and integrity. And if you don't want to do any of that, then you can just be an affiliate for somebody like Brett who creates a critical thinking course, and you want to disseminate that to some of your friends who aren't smart enough to be libertarians. I had a couple case studies. I just wanted to show you this real quick no one's given me the shepherd's hook yet. I started on Patreon because I saw Kind of Funny Games making $22,000 a month. And I was like, okay, so they make silly little videos making 20 grand a month, but wait, there's more. They have another page, another 20 grand a month. So I said, I need to dip my toe in that Patreon. I saw Philip DeFranco with 16,000 times $5 a month. Saw Jordan Peterson making almost 50 grand a month. Right? Here's a guy who's a professor, very controversial, could lose his job. Do you think he cares now? He's getting 50 grand a month. He's doing incredible projects. So Patreon, the whole idea is it's another way to offer value to your subscribers or to your clients. And, John Rice, there you go. This is someone who subscribed the other day, but he had actually been subscribing through our community for several years. But when I saw that he was supporting Corbett and Larkin Rose, Derek Bros, and Luke out there, I said, I'm going to put that in the presentation because this is what I've noticed. That $5 a month means a lot to me. And I bet it means a lot to everyone else on the list. And they all appreciate being supported by people who are actually taking the study seriously. If you listen to those podcasts, forget about it, man. You've got an incredible perspective that no one else on the planet can really, especially a university, is not going to be able to give you the breadth and depth of perspective as just a couple of those guys on that page right there for Patreon. I started it 18 months ago. I said that looks like a successful graph. I'm going to put that in the presentation. Almost $1,000 a month. It's not a lot, but it makes a total difference because you got a baby. Got a baby to feed. So I was like, that looks good. Indiegogo or Kickstarter, fund your projects through crowdfunding is another useful way for entrepreneurs to bring in additional resources. And shameless plug for Free Ross. This is one of the t-shirts we made. That's a pin where Davi Barker took the design and made pins, so make sure you pick up a pin from Davi. And, yeah, it's on the table. And I was going to show case studies, but we don't have time for that. I ran too long. But Lynn does have an email opt-in and is well on her way to implementing the rest of these steps. This talk originally started out as a picnic table talk between me and Ernie and Brett and a couple of other people. I appreciate that we had the opportunity to make it larger and that everybody at least got to get their feet wet. The thank you page, which will be right here, tragedyandhope.com/Porcfest 2017. It includes the stuff I didn't get to go through, but I went through the most important stuff first, so at least you know there's an infrastructure that exists to bring you in more recurring currency, more passive income, if you would apply it. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over. Thank you so much for the gentle help. And everyone have a great day and stay out of the rain. Oh.